Let's have yet another moment of silence, please. I really want to have a long moment of silence. Please. Just give people time for their tears. Give people time for the damage control. Give people time for the negativity comments. Give people time to eat that crow soup. And it's 2019 and it hasn't even gotten better. It hasn't even started yet, y'all. So let's just give them a moment of silence before we move on. They played themselves. They played themselves. Let's move on. I said back in the days that Sony was in a financial crisis situation and that Sony was a part of a 3-year turnaround plan. The bets was on cameras and the PlayStation. Now that word bet means the forecast, y'all. Back to that word, the forecast. This is something that Sony knew about, knows about, been doing. It just is what it is. It's no surprise. Sony aims to boost operating profit 25-fold within the years by growing its camera sensor and PlayStation units, its chief executive said, outlining its strategy that could see the company exit a cutthroat TV and smartphone sectors. His cast again said on Wednesday that Japanese consumer electronics firm will no longer pursue sales growth in such areas such as smartphones, where it has suffered competition for cheaper Asian competitors. But unlike the Apple and the Samsung electronics, which are mightier and more successful, Sony S&E, there's that word up. We don't even want to bring to that because that has nothing to do with gaming, right? Would instead focus is spending on more profitable businesses such as the camera sensors, video games, and entertainment as it seeks to return to growth after forecasting for this financial year. Here it goes, y'all. It's 6 net loss in 7 years. Unbelievable, man. Asked about the TV and mobile phone units, Cass said he would not rule out considering an exit strategy. Sony's clear statement to date about the possibility of selling or finding partners for these struggling units. Sony is in the midst of reconstructing that has so far seen it sell off its personal computer division and spin off its TV business. It also has axed thousands of jobs. We see these partnerships in the movies with Marvel. So don't ever think that this money is just going straight to Sony. And it's just making Sony so successful with all the stuff that is going on. No. Usually when you see something now, considering Sony is partnered off and, negotiations have been made that, in very fine printing, if you look deep, you will see where the partnership is at, but they're not going to put that right up front so everybody will see that Sony's struggling. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that, people. It's not the way it works. It's all about smoke and mirrors. Sony shares, there's that word again, has risen more than 80% over the past year as investors applaud the reconstruction, which accelerated since Ra appointed Kenichiro Yoshida as the chief strategy officer in late 2015. Of late 2013. Ross says Sony would target return of equity of more than 10% by the end of March 2018, adopting the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has been promoting a way to attract foreign investors. He also says Sony aimed to post an operating profit for at least 500 billion yen, which is only $4.2 billion, for 2017 and 2018. A jump from the 20 billion yen forecast for the year ending in March 31st. Sony revamp is starting to pay off this month. It forecasts an operating profit instead of a loss for the financial year on March 31st, but it still expects to book a net loss in 2014 and 2015 a better smaller amount than previously estimated. So even during the times of the mighty PlayStation 4, Sony is still trying to make a way to make money. In an attempt, it has a slow death and will band-aid its situations on a wound that's just constantly bleeding. He also said that the few expect Sony to return to the days when the Walkman, the Trinitron TV defined how people around the world consumed entertainment. Moving on up, April 30th of 2015, Sony says it will return to profit for the first time in 3 years. We're just saying profit, people, not revenue, just profit. And we know what profit means. So this means Sony hasn't even been profiting off of anything. Think about it. 2015 was when the article was made in April. So you count back 3 years, 2014, 2013, 2012, and beyond. Sony ain't made no profit off of nothing. They didn't even make no money off the daggone PlayStation 3, the entirety. Sony believes it will bounce back to profit for the first time in 3 years, but the Japanese Electronics Entertainment Group, with the record of repeated profit warnings, kept its full-year guidance surprisingly low. Now they're punks. They're scared. They're scary. They're scary to make decisions. Oh, yes. Calculated steps, real slow. They're not going to come out with some big announcements. You can forget that. You're hearing it right now. They're not going to come out with nothing brand new. You're going to have what I said you was going to have. You're going to have that PSVR, and they're going to force feed you with it. You ain't going to have no options. Yo, you either going to buy it, and then that's going to hurt Sony even more. But y'all ain't going to do that. Y'all going to love Sony. Sony's going to give you those movies to play with, and you're going to play those movies. You're going to play those movies in a beautiful 30 frames per second. Sony said today it is expected to look at a net profit of 140 billion of yen, which is only 1.2 billion of US, for the financial year to March 2016, and a sharp reversal from the loss of 126 billion the previous year of the yen. The return to profit will come on the back of booming demand for its image sensors, which are used in Apple's iPhones. So we see that one of the reasons why Sony is hanging on is off of the success of Apple and its product, not even on its product. Sony's not even being successful for anything that they're making. We'll get to that in a minute too, but that's also hilarious and something people need to know. That they're not even making money They're not making money off of any of the products that they own, that they make. They're making their main product that they're making off of is an Apple product. They're relying on the iPhone to be successful. The nascent recovery after a brutal cyber attack on his movie studio in November, and in 2011, the PSN being hacked cost them millions. Cost them on the super hack billions. And Sony will allow the resume paying of the dividend of the yen by 10 per share for the fiscal half, having scrapped the payout last year for the first time since going into the public in 1958. So analysts and executives say Sony's conservative guidance, there it is, it's a conservative guidance. Scared, very scared. They're not confident in their steps, which was well below their consensus expectation for the net profit of 182 billion yen, is evidence of how far the company has shifted under the leadership and chief executive guys. Hurrah. Whereas in the past it was criticized at times for being overly bullish, the company has become stricter about setting realistic goals. So now you got Sony in the past that was more vibrant, more vigorous, more ambitious to do what they needed to do, to now, in the current years, they're more conservative, scared to make moves. Because naturally, when your money's not there, you're going to conserve more. If you're not successful, you're going to sit back in the cut. We revised down our guidance 15 times over the past 7 years, and we're taking into account every possible risk factor to avoid a profit warning. Yoshida, Sony's chief financial officer, said at the news conference. Mr. Hirai, Mr. Yoshida have focused on ensuring profitability rather than merely increasing volumes. So now the whole shift has changed. With the emphasis on higher price models, for example, its TV business out of the annual operating profit for the first time in 11 years, the previous fiscal year. So don't tell us that Sony's making money. Over the 11 years, it's been cuts, bleeding, year after year, after year, after year, after year. Sony sold off its personal computer business last year and plans to eventually spin off all of its electronic units into separate subsidiaries. Mr. Yoshida has implemented deep cut costs across the entire group, including the head office. Hey man, it's for real. Mr. Yoshida said that the company would also invest in content hardware networks for its gaming business, another growth driver has strong sales of its PlayStation 4 console. And we all know that no company makes money off of consoles. With the recovery still in an early age, however, analysts remain wary about Sony's vulnerability to fluctuating demand for its TV and mobile business, will still comprise some 30% of its total revenue. So that's the problem. A dying stronghold within Sony's own company is a burden for them. It's not anybody else. It's Sony. It's Sony's own things. For the first fiscal year, Sony will set aside 45 billion yen in reconstruction charges after booking costs of 33 billion to exit the PC business and to fix its struggling smartphone business over the past 12 months. But we already found out that didn't work out as planned, did it? So with the severe volatility in the environment, especially for mobile phones, there will be factors that can't anticipate even if they think that they have the success control. Mr. Yoshida says another risk factor is a negative impact on the surging U.S. dollar, which increases the cost of components for handsets and consoles purchased in the currency. There goes your greatest mystery to this next generation right here. Mark my words. You won't have what Xbox has, because the ever-growing technology and the ever-changing and innovation of technology in the Western world is superseding that of the Eastern world. There is now a direct, distinct definition as to why Sony is always behind Microsoft when it comes to innovation. You heard it right there. So don't expect the unexpected. Expect just these facts, man. And I'm going to give it to you. Your worst fear is going to happen next gen. Xbox will be king again. Xbox will have a console that tramples over the PlayStation 5. You can get it on out your head thinking the PlayStation 5 is going to be better than Xbox. You can get that out of your head right now. The PlayStation 4 was your last doom and gloom. PlayStation 3, trash. PlayStation 2, console selling in a time period, no competition. PlayStation 1, trash. So let's don't sit up here and act like the PlayStation is just this greatest consoles of all time due to statistical numbers, because it's not. Let's just get that right. You're going to learn very soon that the success of a console is not about how many units it can sell. You're gonna learn that real quick and real soon. The success of a console comes by way of purchasing its content and allowing its services to remain within it. So you're going to learn. And don't say nobody didn't tell you, because I told you. Sony is solidly in the black after years of restructuring. It's solidly standing way back there in the darkness, looking at everybody else. This is an article, June of 2017. Nothing I'm reading comes from me. These are all comes from reports, and Sony's in it. Yoshida is in it. Direct quotes. So this is made up. This to bring you up to par, open your donkey and minds up, and open your eyes up to the reality that's about to happen. 5 years after a painful reconstruction period that saw significant layoffs, staggering losses, and a not so surprising exit from the PC market, Sony is back. The giant is riding the recovery of its consumer electronic business towards a nicely balanced profit structure, helped along by its financial services and entertainment operations. So there you go. Off of partnerships and various financial services. That's how it's back. That's not nothing to brag about, people. Apple, which lately never seems to miss when it comes to product development, has been the matter of this respect. So there you have it. The reason why Sony is doing so good is because Apple is doing so good. So we see now who's really holding Sony up. We see now, don't we? This is why you got the rumor as to why Apple would eventually be the one to buy out anything of Sony. Now you understand the rumor, right? You understand why you hear that sometimes. Because those people, just like me, know that the success of Sony is solely off of Apple. This is why you hear that type of stuff. The burning question facing Sony is whether to focus on safe, stable growth or take a few risks in order to perhaps reign supreme again as an innovator. Guess what, people? I got the answer for that. They're going to take the safe, stable growth. Y'all a bunch of punks now. You're scared to take risks. You talk too much. And these real giants in the game are doing what they do. The real giants in the game are doing what they do. While you're a wannabe with the biggest mouth, now you sitting in the corner all along with a sucker. You just get a sucker while everybody else eats steaks and shrimp. Today, the PlayStation division, driven by the PlayStation 4 console, was the biggest part of Sony's contributor, with 23% of its 75 billion yen of revenue. The movie studio and its music business had 16 billion of sales last year of yen. Sony is at a disadvantage, here we go, to compete in the field of artificial intelligence, where Microsoft reigns supreme, since it is grappling with both the loss of its traditional strength and hardware and its lagging effort in data, said Kata Enzawa, an analyst of Citigroup. In the entertainment realm and expansion of U.S. streaming service, Netflix is another blow. All USA products. See, a lot of times y'all cats out here lose y'all minds and get made fun of because you're supporting foreign entities that don't really care nothing about you. You're investing in a foreign entity that's trying to get itself right. And in a sense, that don't make no sense. As an investor, that makes absolutely no sense at all. And now you understand why the investors have packed up their bags and left Sony. Mostly the investors that you probably see that are still hanging around Sony are probably Japanese investors. They're sticking to the code. But I guarantee you the majority of the investors that have packed their bags up and left out of there are not Japanese. For Sony, the sense of urgency posed by the rapidly moving market conditions could present a silver lining and an opportunity to break down the organizational that have killed them internally. The obvious capability between Sony assets are games and movies. Although previous attempts have been hampered by the fiercely independent movie studio in the U.S., A recent example of closer ties between Hollywood and the games of success is the new Spider-Man game for its PlayStation 4 console, which has sold 3.3 million copies in its first 3 days. So what Sony Sony Pictures Entertainment, the movie industry of it, is now going to try to just rely on that. Because Sony's just going to keep on whatever they were successful on, whatever they were successful at, you're going to have to come back and think that, hey, well, look, do you think they'll just keep on doing this? Yeah, they'll just keep on doing it. They ain't got nothing else to do. You don't make enough games for them. So of course they're going to sit back and buy anything that you put out there that has never been a big deal. Never been a big deal. Spider-Man games never been a big deal. But yet all of a sudden now, they're the biggest deal in the world. Spider-Man game was the biggest deal in the world because you have nothing. You played yourselves. That Spider-Man game wasn't innovative. It didn't do anything. You still had to spin webs and swing through the city. Get out of here. You still fought the same villains. Get out of here. Sony had strength in individual products, but true collaboration will not be born unless there is an ecosystem. Not that word. Please don't say ecosystem. We made fun of Microsoft doing that years ago. When Microsoft combined everything and put it under an umbrella. I better not hear that. Better not be hearing that. Sony has strength in individual products, but true collaboration will not be born unless there is an ecosystem with a stronger user base. In the case of Sony, it has been difficult to expand its PlayStation users beyond games. There you have it. You guys barely play the games you have. You guys buy consoles to sit up here and watch movies on them. And they can't move y'all off anything because you casuals. Y'all are hurting the brand more than helping the brand. Y'all actually think that y'all are doing something by bragging about how many consoles get sold. It's sad, man. For Sony, the individual product remains important as its content and services. Before becoming chief executive, Mr. Yoshida said years ago. Kazuura presents his strategy for recovery in 2012, and we know how long it took him to get that down. So the 3-year reconstruction period of Sony didn't come in 3 years. And in doing so, a lot of people fell. Andrew House, Jim Ryan, and many others, including Kazuura, are no longer with Sony today. Many others who you saw at one time, and all of a sudden they fell off. They're gone. Bye-bye. That's because when you're in a financial crisis, you have those investors. Now you understand who are really the strongest people in a company. Those investors. Because they're putting those millions of dollars into you. They're putting those thousands of dollars into you. They're keeping you afloat. It's the investors who are really running the businesses. They're the ones who really have the power. And when they walk away, you really don't have that power that you think. And that's the funny part. In order to compete in these challenging markets, Sony plans to cut lead time on product development, the time between inception and release, by half. Now you see, while you had your homeboy up in there running his mouth, acting like he had a brilliant plan for not coming to E3. Nah, man. Nah. There was no brilliant plan for that. This plan is as old as 2012. They had already saw this stuff coming. They had already made sure that they wasn't going to be able to get that production. That's why it takes your game 7 to 10 years to be made. That's why they give you trailers after years after years after years, because they really don't have nothing for you. They don't have nothing for you. And so you wondering, why come these games don't come out so fast anymore? Why come I don't have anything? You don't have anything because, hey, they told their developers, take your time. Take your blessed time, because we're not going to waste our money on it. We're not going to fund our money on production. So whenever it comes out, it's just going to come out. What we'll do is we'll invest in some partnerships. We'll get into some VR. We'll make some other side games to keep our consumers at bay until we make our own games and get them out there. Hopefully by that time they're still supporting us. We'll brainwash them with some Kool-Aid. And hey, they'll stick around. CAS plans to reduce fixed costs by 60% and flexibility costs by 30% through further reconstruction, including a previous rumor 10,000 job cuts, which no longer became a rumor, as well as reducing the model count to 40% in fiscal 2012. The CEO believes that the LCD is still king. There's your problem. Now you understand why Sony is still in 1080p, while they're not even full-fledged 4K yet. Now you see. Because they're behind, people. And when you're behind, you try to make yourself look good, right? You try to make yourself look good. You try. And when you try to make yourself look good, you die just like that. The CEO believes that the LCD is still king, and Sony needs to maintain its focus on this segment, but it is also exploring new technologies like OLED and crystal LED, although unfortunately he's staying tight-lipped about time and details of the latter. Executing properly will bring the division back to profitability by 2013. He believes. We know where that went. You know where that went. That didn't go anywhere. So here we have an interesting thing right here. This gets really funny, y'all. Digital Foundry. Digital Foundry's own Richard Ledbetter. On why the time is right for the cloud. Hey y'all, I can't make this up. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Can't make this up. And we're going to get into it. Digital Foundry is called Tech Focus Sony versus the Cloud. And this was done in May of 2012. This was before the cloud computing console, the Xbox One, was even out on market. You had talks of the cloud back then. And a lot of times I pointed this out because you could hear a lot of these donkeys running their mouth and they don't know what they're talking about. And I used to be like, yo, did you not read? You just out here talking sounding stupid. Did you not read? So evidently they didn't read. The whole donkey community is fooled. But this is from Richard Ledbetter, May 30th, 2012. To publish or not to publish? That's the dilemma facing journalists presented with red hot rumors, okay? Now this is on the cloud. The title is Tech Focus Sony versus the Cloud. The mass market has spoken. Convenience is more value than fidelity. It's simpler, a matter of when, not if, games will follow suit. Only a fool will suggest that streaming won't factor into the plans of both Sony and Microsoft during the next gen period. MP3s have supplemented the CD. Netflix and other streaming video outlets produce more revenue than DVD and Blu-ray. That's why you got a problem with Blu-ray right now. There's a problem with Blu-ray right now. Blu-ray is losing money because more and more people are not buying it. They can sit there and get subscriptions into these movies that are streaming these games in 4K and have their day with it. Nobody's going out here to the movie theaters are still doing good, but nobody's going to buy these these movies, when they can sit there and watch them and glorious 4K content. I mean, they probably couldn't do it on your PlayStation. No, but that's a PlayStation problem. That's not a consumer problem. That's a PlayStation problem. And that's nobody's fault but PlayStation. How's PlayStation woes a whole economic situation's problem when it's not? Sony is its own problem. The console cloud tie-up obviously makes a lot of sense, especially for a company like Sony. The console business model is financially crippling and fraught at risk. And in the PlayStation 3, the company has had an enormous amount of money lost. Not only are there colossal R&D costs in making a technologically advanced gaming console, but the platform holders, initially at least, need to sell these machines at a substantial loss in order to grab a large audience quickly. The hope is that the license fees paid on every game sold will eventually recoup the loss. Certainly until production costs on the consoles drop enough for the manufacturer to start turning their profit on them. There you go. So you always take a L before you take a W. So the thing is now what's making it look so funny is how in the world does Sony sell that many consoles yet still lose the battle? Tell us. You tell us, how do you sell that many just to lose? Tell me. That's almost 100 million consoles sold. Who looks weaker? Microsoft or Sony? Who looks like they don't know what they're doing? Microsoft or Sony? Who? I'm just saying, people. Who? I mean, at some point, you got to face the facts. You can't keep running around acting like this stuff is not happening. I know it might hurt your feelings. I know you love the console. But there comes a point where you have to face the truth. And if Sony is bleeding, and they've been bleeding, you just have to accept that, man. There's no help that you can do. At this point, it's basically saying, hey, you can buy all the consoles in the world and it's not going to help them. I mean, at this point, what are y'all supposed to do? You know, tell us. We want to know at this point, what are y'all supposed to do? It's almost as if you don't even know what to do for them anymore. And I don't know what to tell y'all. I mean, if you can't get by selling 100 million consoles, man, is that a success? Is that really a success story? Y'all the ones always throwing up these console sales. So I mean, is it a success story? Having 100 million consoles and you still hurting as a company. How is that a success? To me, it sounds kind of fishy, doesn't it? It sounds real suspect, right? It sounds so suspect it's not even funny. Almost 100 million consoles? That's crazy. The attention and the attraction to the cloud is therefore obviously a partner up with a company that has a server infrastructure and costs fall through the floor. We already know who that is. That's how they structured PSN. Well, Gaike or whatever you call it, Gaiki or whatever you want to call that name. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They partnered up because Sony doesn't own their own stuff. The smartphone and tablet owners already have an accessory of video decoders built into their hardware. So so does the PlayStation Vita, which makes it easier for somebody like Sony to conduct business through. So it was easier to make Sony to make it seem like they had all this technology because the stuff that they already had was already running off of the stuff that they could partner with. It wasn't like, they had built this structure and things like that. The partnership is what allowed these games to be ported and to be used. It was through the partnership, not through Sony. So it's funny to me that even back then in 2013, we had Digital Foundry's own talking about how holding back the quality of experience of enormous leaps have been made by Gaiken on live. It's getting technically functionable, but work continues on refining quality So the cloud is not entirely ready for showtime. And if the PS3 titles are unlikely to be supported, why would Sony ink the deal? First of all, it's important to remember that Sony is more than just PlayStation. It's a company tasked with the inability job of reviving the fortunes of its ailing TV business. Geico has already announced a tie-up with LG for cloud gaming, integration with its smart TVs, and perhaps this is the context in which we should be reviewing any potential Sony deal rather than automatically associating it with PlayStation gaming. So simply put, with the major rivals looking to supply built-in video games, the cloud and their HD TV, Sony would be a significant competitive disadvantage to its rivals, and that if they didn't follow suit with this deal, not only making them automatically associated with the PlayStation gaming. And the PlayStation could offer gradually integration over time. So over time is what they're thinking about. Over time is what they're thinking about. And this leaves us with where they're at today. The cloud is the most important element in the future of gaming, and now's the time for Sony to be investigating the tech and build the right relationships with experts in the field. This is in 2012. We are in 2019, and Sony still doesn't have their own gaming cloud service. Who remembers the low-level graphic API called the Wrapper? They so-called said was better than DirectX 11 and OpenGL, but what happened to it? They ain't invest no more in it, because what do we see them going with now? Vulkan, Navi, Possibility. Microsoft got the biggest deal with AMD. So once again, you see another failed forecast. All these failed forecasts with Sony. Which leads us up to this. Microsoft's not showing up for E3. The PlayStation Play event show we just saw that featured all that VR stuff and those whack-looking games didn't look promising. It's sad, y'all, that all these years you guys pushed all these smoke and mirrors and objectives for Sony, but yet, as I led y'all up through these years, all we kept seeing is Sony trying to recover. If you're recovering, that means you're not there yet. When you're scared to try, that means it's going to be hard for you to succeed. You cannot be scared to try. And all in while, in 2018, it's Microsoft who explains the Xbox One cloud enhancements and graphics. We had Matt Booty already trying to tell people that the Xbox One games that need an extra graphics boost will be able to tap into 300,000 Microsoft servers for latency insensitive computations. The cloud architecture can provide additional light and physics and motion effects beyond the capabilities of the console's 8-core AMD processor and custom GPU. They were saying that. You wasn't getting that from Sony. As detailed by Ars Technica, cloud computing can help with effects that don't have to happen immediately. So when you walk into a room, it might be that for the first second or two, the fidelity of the lighting is done by the console, but then as the cloud catches up with it, the data comes back down to the console, and you have incredibly realistic lighting. Matt Booty, general manager of Redmond Game Studios, which is now, we know, head of the Xbox team. He's also head of the Xbox division. It is an interesting concept when compared to the fully cloud-based gaming services like OnLive and the Sony-owned Geico. Those services promise the ability to play high-end games on low-end hardware such as tablets and cheap laptops, but the lag is noticeable compared to local gaming. So y'all sitting up here on these laggy-end situations like I've been saying, and y'all acting like that's normal gaming. Y'all have the nerve to go out here and talk about other people on their platforms when y'all got the laggiest platform of all. Microsoft is using the cloud to offer better visuals in cases where a little lag won't hurt. But this approach raises a couple concerns. First, if the cloud-based processing takes a second or two, it could create an undesirable pop-in effect, diminishing the benefits of better visuals. It's not hard to imagine cloud computing playing a more central role in gaming a few years down the road. Hint, hint, with consoles tapping into servers to scale up their capabilities instead of remaining, hint, hint, stagnant. 3 years down the line, the ability to tap into Microsoft Cloud servers could help prevent the Xbox One from showing its age. The risk, of course, is that always online will become a requirement at that point. And you can see that the industry don't know nothing, don't know anything that they're talking about right there. This guy is just assuming. He doesn't understand that, hey, we're already using Wi-Fi. Our internet is already on. It's on all the time. So they talk about how they got motion sensors, how they got VR, and how they've been doing the camera. You see all these articles boosting up Sony. Then you see them boosting up the Nintendo with the Nintendo motion sensors, but none of them breaks records like the Kinect. The Kinect breaks Guinness records, sells 10 million units, tops iPhone and iPad. None of them has done that. Not one of them. You know, it's funny because, you know, Microsoft just doesn't get the credit it deserves. Rise wins the SIGGRAPH Award for Best Real-Time Graphics in 2014. We talk about how Microsoft didn't have games that looked great, that the console was underperformed. We've heard it year after year after year after year after year. Those are like the statistical punchlines, right? But the facts is that Microsoft is the only console company with its gaming brand, the Xbox, that actually won the highest graphical achievement award that you can get. And Rise won the first one. And what makes it sad, what makes it really sad, is the next following year in 2015, Quantum Break wins another SIGGRAPH Award for the technological best rendering of technology at the same event of the SIGGRAPH in 2015. So for the first back-to-back, its second year and its third year being out, the Xbox had 2 games to win best graphics. And on top of that, which makes it even funnier, is when Rise of the Tomb Raider came out, I believe it was in the fall of 2017, the following year after 2016, hey, it won best graphics of the year on the Xbox One. So, you know, talking points about, hey, Microsoft can't make great looking games or the best looking games is a lie. Now you can see why they were so desperate to give Sony best looking game award or best game of the year, because they wasn't getting anything. But you want to know what's funny? They're giving them awards from opinionated shows. When you win from the SIGGRAPH, those are technological leaps and bounds. This is being recognized in the League of Extraordinaires as something substantial and of evident that it must go down in the record books. It must be accounted for. Those are real trophies of accomplishments. Bonnie Ross enters the Hall of Fame, right? It's crazy because she gets entered in by the Academy of Interactive Arts and Science, AIAS. Salute to her for not only being a strong female gamer in the community, but one that's also a root gamer and has also put 343 on the back and has continually to grow that series of Halo over 6 billion worldwide. It's funny that last year, Phil Spencer, the executive VP of gaming at that point, had got an award for People Person of the Year. And it's funny because People of the Year of 2018 is Phil Spencer. No, I says PlayStation may have dominated the charts. There was some statistics, but it was Xbox that got the gaming industry talking. Whether you're looking at Metacritic or the sales charts, hint, hint, we know which community does that. The last 12 months has proceeded in the much of the same of the previous 4 years, generationally entirely dominated by PlayStation. Yet here we are days from the bid and farewell of 2018, and it's Phil Spencer. It's funny how they say this, that it was only a few years ago when Microsoft was closing studios and its hardware was suffering unfavorably. Comparisons to the competition, Xbox, so the story went, was out of touch of its ideas now at the close of 2018. Opinions are beginning to shift. As we're moving on to 2019, and it's ever apparent now who's who and who's doing what. Cloud gaming is the future. Microsoft told us it was going to be the future. And now we're moving right on into it. Microsoft is staying quiet, which they should. Don't give off anything. They've learned that this gaming industry doesn't like you. It's full of donkeys and biased communities. You stay quiet, you throw your power out there, and you continue to shock the world. We cannot wait to see cloud gaming, and it is now here, and it is the future of gaming. And the cloud gaming community of the Xbox community will be the community to push cloud gaming afar. The Azure cloud has no competitor. Apple, Google doesn't even come close. We haven't seen anything yet, folks, and I hope that when they come big like they say they come big to the point to where it's just an automatic shutdown. Xbox finally gets the props and recognition it deserves, as the OG Xbox did, as the 360 did. The Xbox One X, king of all consoles, the most powerful console ever made in the universe. That could be like a cartoon. And now as we're moving into 2018, we're playing games at 4K 60, 4K 30. We're playing games that have never been done before, like Red Dead Redemption, 4K Ultra, 4K Ultra textures. It's crazy. Open world. These devs are getting a chance to put their games out on Game Pass or in the preview program, getting it put out there before it comes out, and have an audience to support them, and they can get a crowd going before the game even comes out, and let gamers embark on the journey with them throughout development with feedback information. Microsoft is the console of investment. The gamers invest on Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't punish you for owning games that aren't current on your new console. With the back compatibility service, you can get those games right back in your catalog if you already paid for them for nothing. And then if there was any games that you missed out, you are able to get them if they're part of it, and if they're ready to be open, you can get them and play them. Even some of the original Xbox games, you'll be able to do the same. You can see them for purchase, you buy them, you'll be able to play them. Hopefully the cloud of Microsoft will be able to produce all Xbox games that ever hit on their platform. From no matter if it was the OG Xbox all the way up to Xbox One. We'll be able to share our experience together. But we do know one thing, y'all, that Xbox is here, and now the opinions have shifted. The market of Microsoft has doubled. And this crazy. Microsoft has money to spend. And now that they're dumping their money into the video game sector, in which Game Pass was a success, Microsoft wants 2 billion gamers on their platform. With the power of that xCloud, they're going to make it happen. So you guys, you're going to eat that crow. Yo, your boy is out of here. He's gone. Castle Rock's out of here. No more. It has happened. It's Yoshida now. And, hey, good luck to Yoshida. Because that cloud's going to tear you up, man. So push that VR. Push it as hard as you can, man. Get them Spider-Man movies out. Because you got a lot of work to do, homie. So it's 2019, man. It's the new legal. Representing Di-RREC Gaming. I hope you like this 2-part series. As I took y'all through the journey of the enterprise known as Sony, and as to why its main competitor was itself. Trying to keep money is what Sony's working so hard to do. it pretty much ain't doing nothing else. It's trying to keep money. Hey y'all, it's been the new legal, and I'm out of here. Peace.